well as all online attendees. Today we have another segment of our NCD symposia, a very interesting one, Beat the NCD, Invest in a Healthy Lifestyle, which I'm sure will be very much interesting and helpful as well for all of us. Today we have three speakers as well as a moderator. Dr. Dewasmika Ariyasinghe, she is a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Psychiatry, consultant psychiatrist. Dr. Asela Rathnayake, who is a senior registrar in sports medicine, attached to the sports medicine unit in National Hospital Kandy. And also Dr. EvoneJayaweera, who is an acting consultant in clinical nutrition, attached to the National Hospital Kandy. Today the program will be moderated by Dr. Sayuri Perera, who is a senior lecturer and a consultant psychiatrist attached to the Department of Psychiatry in Faculty of Medicine, University of Perera. So I would like to invite all of them to commence the. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A very good morning, teachers and colleagues. Thanks to the KSM for organizing this third in the series of discussions on the impact that NCDs have on our health. Now, NCDs have been classically associated with Western countries, whereas poor health is more associated with tropical countries like ours, where infections prevail rather than NCDs. But there was an interesting breakthrough study using international mortality data, which actually showed, I'm sure you are aware of this, that most NCDs cause more deaths at every age in lower and middle income countries than in high income Western countries. And actually this breakthrough study was published in Nature, the journal Nature, I think 2 years ago. So to begin today's discussion, let me just give you a preamble as to what you will be taken through. Today's discussion is based mainly on sports and physical health, nutrition and mental health, which will be led by a panel of 3 expertise. Each of them will speak briefly about the contribution that his or her speciality makes towards NCDs. And following that, we will be having a panel discussion with contributions coming in from all 3 speakers based on 2 very interesting cases. And there will be time at the end of the session for any questions that you may have. I'm sure the panelists will be happy to explain and elaborate. So without wasting much time, I'd like to invite Dr. Asela Rathnayake, Senior Registrar in Sports Medicine at National Hospital Kandy. Over to you, Asela.
To explore the relatively new fields into the system, and also having this opportunity irrespective of the restrictions that we are already having. So when it comes to the NCD, the management with exercise and physical activity. So I would like to bring this slide, just a snapshot for you, how the disease or the mode of death being changed from 2009 to 2019. This is over the last decade. Actually, you can see the leading cause of death, where the ischemic heart disease still, take its position rank 1, and number 2 has the stroke, and you can see the diabetes has been coming up from 4th position to 3rd. Likewise, you can see especially the non-communicable diseases like appeared on the blue color charts, and you can see the impact, and also to our health system and also for the individual. So I would like to actually talk about a little bit about the STEP survey that is conducted in 2015, and you can see the bottom line here, the physical activity, that is the recommended physical activity that during 2015 to 2019 period, there's 150 minutes moderate intensity activity per week. That is actually, you can see it is inadequate, like male it is 22.5 and female is 38.4. So this is the pure data actually with the Sri Lankan based data, and you can see the premature deaths from NCDs in Sri Lanka 2018. Due to the NCD, it is 17% total and it's 22% for males and the females count for about 13%. So when it comes to these details, so I would like to elaborate actually, as just I mentioned, about 80%, 81% of the adolescents do not meet the recommendation of aerobic exercises. So having all this information by 2020, the WHO guidelines on physical activity and sedentary behavior was established, and which I'm going to talk about a little bit, elaboration of this matter. And also, that is the WHO, that's the World Health Assembly, approved a new global action plan for the physical activity that is called GAWTA. That plan actually they wanted to focus on 2018 to 2030, that is next 12 years duration. They want actually to reduce the physical inactivity at least by 15% with the four strategic objectives and also the other policy materials. So I'm just trying to give you a little bit of awareness about this wellness, because health is all times, because you can see this health. We have been updated and heard about a lot of health factors and also the statement of health. But if you really talk about this wellness business that actually emerged somewhere around 2004, and also it was actually well discussed within the USA-based settings. So the wellness is introduced to just to no more than a statement that to act and change the lifestyle and behaviors to minimize the risk factors which is troubling you in your life and all. And why doing that? To maximize the optimal health and vitality. So a lot of things are being coming on, and I just wanted to highlight few dimensions of the wellness. So you can see wellness actually have a lot of things being interactive. So spiritual, intellectual, emotional, environmental, social. You can add any of those in, like financial, educational, like many things are being coming to under the main theme which I'm going to touch upon today, the physical part. So you can see here very clearly, like you can see the continuum of the illnesses, where you can see this very basic structure. Actually, you can see the comfort zone here. So, but that doesn't mean that you are in the optimal health. So you have to go for very high level wellness, and rather than the premature death. And this schematic diagram just show is everything is being packed into a one format, and you can't be having one discipline. So you have to integrate all the things when it's come to the top health or the total wellness in your body. So I'm not going to touch upon these things, the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, which Dr. Dewasmika will elaborate a little bit further. And you can see with very schematic diagram here. So what is the evidence-based impact on exercise and physical activity in different age groups, including children, adults, and old adults, because we all know these facts very well, but I just wanted to have a screenshot for your awareness. And when it comes to the application of this physical activity and exercises, we always recommend to go for a physical activity readiness questionnaire. That is just to screen within a very basic 7 questions. Actually, this has been updated by 2020 part plus. You can actually go very simple questions asking these 7 questions, and if there's any problem that you will undergo further medical evaluation to prescribe exercises.
Asela, can I just interject at this point? I mean, I know that countries like Germany and China, they have national fitness plans targeting the entire population. Do we have any such plans, or if not, can you make any recommendations at an individual level with regards to a fitness plan on an individual basis?
Yes, actually now, there's many other countries, like they have the policy documents and also the health policies to address both individual as well as groups, as well as the mass community. So Sri Lanka also, at the moment, we have discussing about these things, and there were some programs also already launched by the Ministry of Sports and combined with some sports bodies, especially the private as well as the government. But at the moment, we don't have such a mass policy. But at the moment, we are actually trying to establish a mass policy for individual base as well as the targeted group, like maybe children, especially the pregnant ladies, including the differently able people, elderly, every category. And we are actually in the process of not even that, even the disease, people who are having the different health conditions, they have a separate exercise prescriptions program. So we are actually in the process of developing this national policy document. I think in near future it will come into your hands, in a very comprehensive manner.
Right. That's excellent. Right. Thank you.
So basically, I would like to give you this very simple information, because any exercise module should contain this warming up, resistance exercises, cardiovascular exercises, balance training, and the cooling down and stretching. And it's like other prescription. Usually we go by this exercise prescription formula, because there's any medication that we are going through a standard prescription. So likewise, exercise also has this formula, so where you will not miss any of those things when you are prescribing exercises. That is a fit BP, that is a fit stand for frequency, how many days per week, and intensity that we are going to elaborate how we are going to do your intensity, time, and the type of exercises. We have to think about the volume. Volume means actually frequency, intensity, and time. These all the sum of this FIT, the first three, and we are defining the volume, and also you have to actually go through improving in each step. And a little bit of the cardiovascular endurance exercises, that that cardiovascular or the aerobic exercises are using the large skeletal muscle. You use oxygen for that. And the important thing is this intensity concept. So if anyone who's engaging in the exercises, especially the cardiovascular exercises, they should know the subjective measures and physiological and relative measures as well, absolute measures of how you gauge your intensity. Because very simple test that you don't need to have actually sometimes the heart rate monitor system to monitor your heart rate and see where you are. Sometimes you don't need to have a very high-grade instruments to do, but simple test for the general public, you can use this talk test. So for an example, if you are doing a mild exercises, so that you will be able to talk, but and also you can see. Very simple, very crude measures, but you can do it. If you are doing a moderate exercises, you will be able to talk, but cannot see. So if you are engaged in a strenuous activity, so you cannot either talk or see. Likewise, there are measures. Actually, you can use some the fitness watches with heart rate monitors. According to that, we can actually calculate like percentage of the maximum heart rate and you. This is a very simple. Again, we call it the Borg RPS scale, and you can see originally was established from 6 to 20, but now it has been very simplified and going to 0 to 10. And where you can actually plot what is your own intensity. Because a well-trained person is maybe hard or a really hard level, maybe, maybe 9 or 10. But if it is an untrained person, it could be 4 or 5. That is very personal and also individual measure, but that has its own effect. So it's a very sound scale, even though you can see as a very simple measurement. So when it comes to these aerobic exercises, actually aerobic exercises do it in the same formula which I mentioned earlier. So what is the new guideline say is actually you have to do it in a daily basis, that is for the best outcome. So you can see here, actually, as I mentioned earlier, so you can see that you can actually gauge your intensity according to your whatever the measurements that you are going to take. So there are a lot of activities like this: walking, cycling, jogging, swimming, running. All these things are belongs to this category. But nowadays, in 2020 guidelines, what they have recommended is to go for 300 minutes per week, whereas previously it was 150. But there are some controversy about these values if you go for mild to moderate exercises. But if you go vigorous exercises, just 75 minutes per week is more than enough. So you can do it in many other formats, and remember to make sure that you go for the universal protocol. You have to do a warming up exercises and the cooling down exercises. So I'm going to highlight this one specifically because the HIIT program, because when I talk about these standard aerobic exercises, it's very difficult because it takes about 1 hour per day and to do about 5 days to achieve the 300 minutes. But the one alternative to the standard aerobic exercise is the HIIT program, that's a high intensity interval program, where you can even sometimes complete within a 10 minutes time, maybe half an minute. There are different categories. What you have to do is actually you do 5 to 10 minutes high intensity exercises, and again 5 to 10 minutes low intensity exercises. That can be do it in a different way. Some people do it in 2 minutes, 1 minute. Like 2 minutes, you do the low to moderate or the low intensity activity, and then the next minute without interruption, you do very high intensity activity. Or you can go by minute by minute. So then within 10 minutes time, you are going on a phase that your intensity is being changed. So within 10 minutes time, maybe half an hour time, you can get a maximum output, because it has been done a lot of research on this HIIT, that's a high intensity interval training, that it has a great improvement of your VO2 max, as well as your cardiovascular parameters are being improved, and especially your insulin sensitivity will remarkably improve. So that is very important, because sometimes the time factor is a big problem for today. So HIIT is one of the options, and even with sometimes the rehabilitation post cardiovascular event, it is one of the recommended program today in many centers. And the resistance training is the other one, where you actually do you do against your body weight or your free weights, machine assisted or resistance band you can use. I'll try to elaborate with some diagrams for you. This one, there actually you go by the sets. You can actually do 8 to 12 repetitions. These are the basics. I'm talking about just normal health like parameters, and 2 to 4 sets. So there's a normal exercise program when it comes to resistance exercises.
Asela, right. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. I think that's bringing into light a lot of new evidence in the field of sports medicine in terms of improving your physical health. Now, I'm just wondering currently with COVID-19, the pandemic, and stringent laws with social distancing, gyms are closed, swimming pools are closed. So is there any way that are there any exercises that we can do in the comfort of our own homes, which will also be keeping to guidelines, but in keeping with the social distancing protocol that we are forced to follow these days?
Yeah, this is a very good question, because now many people, including very few segments in the society, now they are being actually relatively less well. The previous non-COVID era, the biggest problem and the complaint to engage in sports is the time. They said, we don't have time. But they have ample time now. But you don't need to go to any gym. If you see this particular diagram on the screen, you can see the calisthenic exercises that use your own body weight you can do many exercises, even at your domestic setup. You don't need any instrument. You think about that you are 70 kilos, the weight person. If you are doing, some of these squats or lunges like in the lower body and also the upper body exercises, so you will be maybe doubling or maybe tripling your the resistance to your body, and you can actually change your hand position. You can do certain exercises, and you will see how these are being really improved. So you don't need a single machine. You can actually do these things at your domestic setup. But if you have an improvised system like small set of dumbbells or the sand-filled water bottle, something like that, you can do all these exercises, which is stimulating to dumbbells. That can be done even at domestic setup, even in non-COVID or COVID season. And resistance bands is one of the wonderful things. And if you have one or two resistance, different resistance bands, you can see here there's not a single machine here, but all the body parts can be exercises without any problem. Because with the aging now, there are a lot of issues, because if you combine this aerobic and strengthening exercises together, your outcome of all the measurements, all the parameters of health is going to increase, so the summation is high. So actually, you don't need to have a simple machine, because all your exercises can be done, and this is one form of exercise. Actually, these resistance bands can buy from many pharmacies, because now these are available in many places. So it is actually valid for COVID, non-COVID both. Only thing is you have to really do. But one special thing about resistance training, if you wanted to do the aerobic training and the resistance training together, don't do the aerobic training first and then followed by the resistance training, because you will start your resistance training first and then start the aerobic training, because chances of hypoglycemia can be minimized when you start with the resistance training and you don't feel any difficulty. Because whereas most of the traditional practice is to do the aerobic training first and then go for the resistance training. So that should be avoided. Actually, the other important thing is you notice sarcopenia, because when you're getting older, whether you like it or not, your muscle mass and your muscle power and also the performance will be going down. So that is one of the things in the fragility, and also the falling down, and also your muscle mass is going down with the aging. So you have to combat that. You have to minimize that. That is one of the key area where your aerobic capacity is going down when you with aging, because 220 minus your age is the maximum heart rate level. When your age is going up, the maximum heart rate capacity is going down. So what? The same way, but you don't need to, because many of our elderly population, they neglect this resistance part, where you have to really highlight this part, and other than actually other exercises, because flexibility exercises, there are so many flexibility exercises, stretching exercises which you can do, and yoga exercises, Tai Chi exercises, and these also, coming into the field now, and it's very popular, and it has its own effect. More than the body, sometimes the mind is also coming into play, and your stretchability, your balance, everything comes into play. Where the balance exercise also you should never forget. I think it's one of the good time, even within the COVID period, where you forget, especially the elderly people, even the young people, you can prevent fall injuries and many other things when you do the balance training. So there are a lot of balance training things. You can do very simple things and also the very complicated one, depending on your capacity and your area. So I just want to.
Yeah. Asela, thanks. That was brilliant. Actually, a lot of take-home messages there. I just want to ask you one final question. I mean, what about our day-to-day activities? Things like driving, climbing the stairs. Can we include them as contributing maybe towards our fitness regime, or can we not?
Yeah, I think this slide just give you a very good insight, because a lot of even our thinking was changed, when this new information is coming to play. You can see how the sedentary, light, moderate, and the vigorous exercises are there. I mean, you can see like even most of the professionals, how many hours that they are on sedentary lifestyle, you can just by looking at this picture, you can gauge driving a car, sitting, watching television, or reading using a computer. And this is sedentary, absolutely sedentary. And if you go to a light activity, walking casual, just shopping, walking office, eating and preparing food, which I'm putting that part with Dr. Yvonne, will elaborate somewhat, with the nutrition plan, and playing an instrument. And moderate, just brisk walk on the level terrain is considered as moderate. But whereas if you just walk on a climbing hill, just walking climbing hill considered as a vigorous. And walking downstairs of a hill is moderate. Cycling, general gardening, your home chores. So it is just considered as moderate, but which we don't think previously. We just wanted to neglect those things, and in fact exercises. Of course, I'm not going to talk about vigorous math because very less population, in the general population who engage in this vigorous activity as a percentage. But that is also comes into very important thing. And one final two things I just wanted to this step count, which is a marker of physical activity. And if you can, your telephone and your smartphone you can easily install without any cost. It will give you your step count per day. So that's our recommendation is to go for 10,000. And that's new thing called NEAT. That is a non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And if you are sitting, you can see how low your calories being. Just standing, you can burn around. And down chewing, again, because your masseter muscles can consume a lot of energy, more than what you think. So those are the little things now coming into the field, and we can actually improvise those things rather than sitting position. So final two slides I'm going back through. Actually now, even less than 5 years of age, now the physical activity recommendations are there, which we never thought. In 2019, the UK Chief Medical Officer's physical activity guidelines, even for infants, they are giving exercises. And to be started at a very less, very low level of age. And you can see the toddler is 1 to 2 years old, 180 minutes or 3 hours per day physical activity. Even the preschool is the same. And when it comes to the elderly category, 5 to 7 years old, more than 60 minutes activity per day, strengthening the muscle and bone exercises, because on those days, I think strengthening and the exercises are not recommended for children. But now the concept has been changed. Even the supervised strengthening exercises, team exercises, can be incorporated into children's activity, because this joint impact and all these are being explored now. So that has to be a supervised one. And of course, the current guideline, as you said, 18 to 64 years, it's 300 minutes, and also the vigorous activity is 75, as I mentioned. And older, especially pregnant women, also now considered as one of the main exercises targeted group. So just to finish my the insight, because now the exercise recommendations has been gone to everywhere. To name it, any disease, any condition, there is a component that the sports medicine has a role to play. So I'm just giving you the few articles where the physical activity, exercise, and diabetes, the position statement of the American Diabetic Association, which is 2016, and even the European Society of Cardiology, and it has given a very good account in just about 2 months before. That's the 2020 guidelines. And again, especially overweight and management, there are a lot of evidence. So these are some of the very recent articles, 2019 articles. So you name it, any disease, I think there is a sports medicine and exercise or the physical fitness has a role to play.
Yes, thanks, Asela. Thank you very much. I think there was a lot for us to take home. And I like the way how you included how on an individual basis ourselves, even during this pandemic, we can continue to keep ourselves fit an interesting new light about fitness for children as well as pregnant mothers. I think a lot of new information coming through. Can I just at this point bring on our second speaker, Dr. EvoneJayaweera. She is consultant in clinical nutrition at the National Hospital Kandy, and she will speak to us about the contribution that nutrition has towards the NCDs. And Asela, we will be bringing you back for the panel discussion when we come to our cases. Thank you very much, Asela. Yvonne, if you can take over.
Good afternoon to all of you. Now, I'm going to give an overview how the nutrition intervention can be brought up to reduce the prevalence of NCD. So as Dr. Asela described the same thing, I'm not going to elaborate more on this. This is the burden of NCDs, as we clearly mentioned, it is like more than 90% individuals suffering from that. So as the nutrition physician, I have to address most of the behavioral risk factors, which has like 60 to 80% of dietary intervention is important. So even the biological risk factors. In the same survey, they have identified the dietary gaps that we have. Like we don't consume, Sri Lankans don't consume more fruits and vegetables, and since the recommendation of salt is like 5 grams per day, like we consume almost double, and more than 50% population add salt to rice, and even during eating, even after cooking also they are adding about 20%, and the fast food consumption is high. So beating this NCDs, we have to address all this point, but it is not very easy. So what has happened to Sri Lankan diet? So when you see this bar chart, it is the previous food pattern, how the food pattern changed over the time in Sri Lanka. As Sri Lankans actually, before this colonization of Dutch and English, we had a fairly good lifestyle with staple food of rice, but the wheat products came into system after this colonization, and as well as sugars, fast foods increased, and our green leaves and vegetables foods consumption was going down. So as a result of that, you can see the other side, the right-hand side diagram, the NCDs like diabetes, hypertension, diabetes rose with the time. So after the dietary adjustment, actually you can, it's not very easy. I will tell the methods, what are the popular methods, like, but it's not easy. But if you gain the dietary adjustment and if you adapt yourself into a good diet, you can achieve these things. These are evidence-based, like more than 15% to 40% life reduction of NCD.
Thanks, Yvonne. That's very interesting. I mean, I have seen a lot of information on social media, in various journals, magazines, women's health magazines, particularly, where they have focused on various types of diets. I think the audience also must be familiar with this. We speak of the Atkins diet, intermittent fasting, Mediterranean diet, which is supposed to be, one is supposed to be better than the other. So if you could just give us the scientific basis of these various diets.
Yes, that's a very good question, Dr. Sayuri. There are several, as you said, there are ample of diets, but due to the time constraint, I will describe the scientific basis and how we can apply this diet to our system. As you said, all the famous diet like Mediterranean diet is said to be, and it is evidence-based to be healthy, is the diet which contains, this is the diet, actually I will show the diet. So this diet contains a lot of whole grains, and they consume a lot of fruits and vegetables, and they consume quite a lot amount of nuts, and they consume wine as well, and their prime oil is olive oil, and they eat a lot of fish and poultry, but they eat less red meat and dairy products. So that is the basis of this diet. So So actually, the historical basis is after the Second World War, this a famous scientist from US called Ansel Keys saw this low incidence of cardiovascular disease in Mediterranean countries, especially Greece and southern Italy. So he investigated on that and he found that these people are following this kind of diet. And so he presented with 1955 like to WHO. Then it was challenged by a cardiologist, famous cardiologist. Then he did the epidemiological study, like 7 country studies, including these Mediterranean countries and as well as US and Kingdom, which had high incidence of cardiovascular disease. And he proved that this diet has a reduction of cardiovascular disease. Then several trials, famous trials like Perera trial, direct trial, compared this diet with other popular diets, and they proved that there is 30% reduction of cardiovascular disease and other metabolic profiles. So, answer is like this observation came into a medical prescription, dietary prescription like Mediterranean diet. So, for like even for Alzheimer's disease, fatty liver, and cardiovascular disease and cancer prevention as well. But I would focus on this direct trial. As you can see, the Mediterranean diet was compared with low carb diet. So this diet, so low carb diet had more improvement of glycemic profiles and overall metabolic profiles rather than meal diet as confirmed by the direct trial. So then a small another thing. So this diet is not, we cannot take it as a complete diet. Their lifestyle actually meant to be like very healthy, and apart from this diet they are very physically active, stress free, and they share foods and they eat together. So in answer his first prescription, he has actually described Mediterranean diet style rather than a diet. So then, as you mentioned, I will come to the low carb diet or extreme or keto diet. We challenged the Mediterranean diet in direct trial. Actually, it was proved in 13 randomized control trial very recently. Actually, compared to low fat diet or controlled healthy eating, it has improved metabolic profile, especially HbA1c, triglycerides, and overall weight management in many trials. So in these trials, the main point is they did not restrict saturated fat. Yes, I will come to that point later. Then at the same time, the Atkins and ketos are some variants of low carb diets, and actually they make the composition like we reduce the carb and increase the fat protein composition. So they are very popular nowadays, and they are evidence-based as well. Then coming to intermittent fasting, so it is also very trending here, and it seems like 2017 it has evidence like meta-analysis are there. It has improved insulin resistance, and even people have gone to diabetic remission and fatty liver reversal and effective weight loss, but they don't have long-term evidence because the studies came up like 2017. So it's about intermittent fasting. This intermittent fasting was like has a religious piece as well, because in every religion there is a component of fasting. So the basis of this is we are controlling the insulin levels in a steady state, because insulin is the genesis hormone. So if you control the insulin levels by fasting, we can achieve actually weight reduction as well as reduction of insulin resistance. So actually speaking, when we analyze I have analyzed actually the authentic Greece, which are Mediterranean countries' diets, and I read the articles. They also most of the time have a very light breakfast or a soup-like thing, or skip the breakfast, and they maintain certain type of fasting hours like 14 to 16 hours. So That may be the real reason, contributory or reason to the Mediterranean study as well. Then, a small thing about low-fat diet, and this is actually the best. It is actually proven that low-fat, very low-fat diet, like 10% fat in our diet, and dissolve our cholesterol plaques as well. It is like Onish diet, but this it has evidence as well. But we cannot continue this kind of diet because fat is an essential nutrient. 10% fat is likely reduce our vitamins of fat-soluble vitamins as well. So that these diets are not practical, even though evidence states.
Thanks, Yvonne. I mean, coming back to you were talking about inclusion of oils in our diet. If you come back to our sort of the Sri Lankan setup, I think we use a lot of coconut oil. I know olive oil is the recommended one, but we tend to use a lot of coconut oil. And we're a bit uncertain about the inclusion or exclusion of coconut oil in our food. And coming to another point, there's also a bit of uncertainty about the inclusion and exclusion of eggs in our diet, because I think oil and eggs are things that also we're cautious about, but we don't quite know how to include and exclude it. If you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, actually, when we plan a diet, we have to think about the diet commodities like protein, carbs, and fats are the macronutrients, and we have to think about the micronutrients. So, no doubt that we should actually limit the carbohydrate we are dieting like at least to 45% of our diet, and no doubt that we have to take adequate proteins for our muscle buildup. But the doubt is about fat composition. Now, when it comes to the type of fat, the trans fatty acids, which are in this hydrogenated oil like margarine, they are no doubt they are unhealthy, they are atherogenic. So then the question comes with the sunflower oil, olive oil, which are unsaturated fatty acids are good, or saturated fatty acids like coconut butter, animal fat are okay. So when it comes to the sunflower and olive oil is the prime oil in net diet as well. Actually, they consume quite a lot of olive oil as well. But in net diet, they consume most of the time it's in raw situation. So when they are heated, these unsaturated fatty acids, they transfer into the trans fatty acids when they come to the smoke point. So our cooking system is basically like cooking vegetables and steak. So if we heat these unsaturated fatty acids, even though they are healthy, they can transfer into trans fatty acids. So then we have left it with now our one and only coconut oil. We see what are the evidence of coconut oil consumption. So the below article is from the Circulation 2019, which is the American Heart Association with magazine. It is a meta-analysis about coconut oil and consumption of coconut oil and cardiovascular risk. So they by evaluating around 13 to 10 randomized control trials, they have made a conclusion that coconut oil is a saturated fatty acid. Yes, it is true that it increased LDL and there is modest increase in HDL as well. But overall, it is we have to think twice whether when we take coconut oil as the prime oil. So that is one evidence. Then this is the result of it. You can see most of the results are not favoring of coconut oil. Then the second one is also the same. Most of the results are favor the comparator. This product score. It is also a meta-analysis done in Japan and China, and it also proved that coconut oil can be a health risk factor, but the conclusion they have mentioned as family. And this is a Sri Lankan one, 2019, done by Dr. Untitled. And they have found that analyzing 20 RCTs, they have found that it increases HDL, but LDL also, and so can be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease.
That's a very interesting studies. I mean, sort of shedding light on some of the controversies that we have had with regards to adding coconut oil to our diet. But I mean, following on from that, Yvonne, I know in certain countries, certain cultures, they do include a lot of oil in their diet. And I'm sure there are studies done where they have also shown the other side of the coin. I mean, even though you include fats in your diet, overall, if you look at the population risks, they are not much at risk for cardiac diseases, despite this inclusion of oil. Is it because of a lifestyle change, or is there something else playing a part here?
Yes, Dr. Sayuri, can be both the diet. Coconut oil is a commodity only. So if we make it to a certain diet with other food habits, it can be we can minimize the risk. And I will show you the main countries we consume coconut tar. The main countries we consume coconut are like India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and Polynesian countries. So this is actually a study done in these Polynesians. These Polynesians are like these Palau islands. So they consume around 63% of fats from coconut oil. So and they then like the epidemiological study found that they don't have any cardiac disease. So then when we analyze their diets, actually they eat like coconut fresh as snacks and like that, and so very lot of amount of coconut. So but at the same time, the investigator have concluded this is not because only for the low reduction of this is not because of the coconut, or maybe their lifestyle, that they are very healthy and they are taking adequate protein and they are taking whole foods like not processed foods, no sweet. So so within that lifestyle, if we get the palm oil and coconut, there is no risk for cardiovascular overall metabolic profile. And at the same time, about this red meat, unsaturated fats, red meat has same kind of meat and fish meat items have saturated fats. So this study showed that there is no association with red meat consumption and cardiovascular disease, randomized control diet. And so this the conclusion, and also when it comes to Sri Lanka, Professor Shanti Mendis has done 2 randomized control trials in very early stages, and she has found the same thing, like it increased LDL and but HDL also. But at the meantime, she has mentioned LDL and HDL ratio is reduced. So she has mentioned if we accommodate it as the overall diet plan, rather than we should not take it as a one commodity, we should take it as an overall diet plan with other things like reduction of fast foods, sweets, and portion control of carbs. So it won't be that much unhealthy. So same like there are studies in India also proven the same thing. So my conclusion is like we cannot by these randomized control trials that was shown earlier, which against coconut oil, maybe like they are doing like a 2 months or 3 months, maybe shorter period, but we don't know the actually we need like epidemiological studies how the population behave like when we take coconuts for a long time. They may be adapted their cells and how their lifestyle and things. So these all factors should be considered when we prescribe diet and when we advise especially patients, even though the evidence are like that. So the other thing about the eggs you mentioned, so the eggs actually the problem is the yolk has 230 milligram of cholesterol. So that's why they say that whether it is not good to consume more eggs in perspective of heart disease, but several meta-analyses have proven even 2 eggs per day for an established for a normal person is not unhealthy, and it is in fact it has protective beneficial nutrients like choline in the yolk, and it is like a good protein source in fact, so that we should not be very afraid of it so far. Then lastly, I have to tell this: when we achieve the dietary adjustment, we have to have like a satisfaction but it's really both evidence and as well as practical aspect as well. What we have to do is we have to go for our unrefined carbohydrates like the whole foods. Like the rice is a whole food; it's not a processed food. We get it as the grain, so it is a whole food. The one thing we have to do is control the portion of rice, and we have to take non-starchy vegetables and fruits, and then adequate protein and healthy snack. We have to go for healthy snack like nuts and fruits rather than biscuits and shorties. And we can get natural fats. We can consume coconut fat within the limitation. And cooking methods are also important. And we have to limit the salt as well. That is my take on that.
Thanks, Yvonne. That was very helpful and very useful, I think, and not only highlighting what nutrients we should and shouldn't include, but also throwing some light on the overall healthy lifestyle and how it contributes. Thanks, Yvonne. We will be bringing you back for the panel discussion. Can I call upon the final panelist, my colleague? We work side by side back at the faculty. Well, let me just introduce you to her. Dr. Dewasmika Ariyasinghe. She works as a senior lecturer in psychiatry, and she's also an honorary consultant psychiatrist at the teaching hospital in Perera. And she will highlight and speak to you about the contribution of mental health towards NCDs and what we can do to identify risk behaviors and the role that they play in the NCDs. Over to you, Deva.
Thank you, Sayuri, for that introduction. So, in my part of the talk, I will talk about how the mental health aspects of NCD. So, in this slide, I have mentioned the main factors according to the WHO, which contribute to the development of NCD. You can see unhealthy diet, criminal activity, exposure to tobacco smoke, harmful use of alcohol, and stress. I have actually mentioned here separately because I thought now stress itself is a factor in the development of NCDs. On the other hand, if we think about stress, actually some people, when they are stressed, they might resort to any of these unhealthy behaviors as a means of reducing their stress. So, in that way also, stress contributes to maintenance or maybe even initiation of these harmful behavioral behaviors, which might, if go unnoticed or unaddressed, can end up leading to NCD. So anyway, we can see all these are behavior related. So in my 15 minutes, I will try to mainly focus on some aspects in changing behavior, then alcohol, and then how to manage stress. So here, how can we change our ways of behavior? If I can describe this diagram for you, actually you can see 4 constructs in our changing the trying to reduce the prevalence of NCDs. We try to mainly focus at behaviors, but behavior is just one construct which is affected by the other 3. You can see all these are quite linked to each other. If I'm to take like in our culture, we tend to think thoughts and feelings maybe as the same, but it's important to realize that these are 2 things. Thoughts as like activity, what we think, and then feelings like can be what we feel like anger, sadness, happiness. If I'm to like elaborate it further, taking some examples from the today's topic, actually now there are people who would overeat when they feel either angry or sad or maybe lonely. So then some people when they have worrying thoughts, then again they might tend to overeat. And also the person who has been doing these maybe exercises might stop engaging in exercises if they are preoccupied with this worrying thoughts. Now, somatic state. Now, when they overeat, the other important thing is they don't eat healthy food either. They usually go for some high carb or high fat food. So, if we don't address these things, then obviously we are not going to succeed. Then, somatic symptoms, sleep is a somatic symptom, and if someone has impaired sleep or maybe weight test, then on such occasions also people tend to overeat. Especially they have the researchers have shown they crave for carbohydrates when they are sleep deprived. So all these things contribute to unhealthy behavior. So it's now I think it's quite obvious. Even though it's the behavior that we are targeting to change, we really can't change behavior without addressing the other components. We have to see why this person has this particular behavior. Right. Now, this one cycle of change. Usually, when it comes to cycle of change, it is about substance use. But actually, we can use this thing when we want to, for ourselves or maybe in our patients, we can use this to change any maladaptive behavior. Obviously, now most of the time, people are blissfully unaware that they have an unhealthy behavior and the consequences of that unhealthy behavior. So that is, so they are in decontemplation phase. And then contemplation, where the person knows that there is a problem, but considering change, but yet to take any action. Then preparation, okay, now okay, I'm going to do this. So the person prepares, and then in the action phase, they take an action. Anything which is effective and is convenient for that particular person. So action, when the person continues to do this, then leads to maintenance, and sometimes people might relax to their old behaviors, but still it is not the failure. That is what we have to exercise our patience. Just because you have relaxed, it is not a failure. You are trying. That is the best. That is the most important thing. So keep trying. We can do help support.
Thanks, Devadi. I think Asela also highlighted the importance of this cycle of change. It is not only restricted to mental health problems or addictive behaviors. Yeah. Any maladaptive behavior, we can use the cycle of change to correct that maladaptive behavior. Then I was very interested about you were speaking about stress. And I think stress is a very loosely used term now. Everybody comes and says, I'm stressed. Children come and say they are stressed. Is stress bad for you, or is there a good stress and a bad stress? Or if there is a bad stress, how it impacts our life and our lifestyle and leading to NCDs? If you could just explain to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, actually, yes. Now, it's when we think about it and when people talk about it, we think it's a bad. If we know it's not a bad. It's a lifesaver, a natural response to natural response of our body to challenging situations. So I will go to some physiology here. So within a very short period, the body has to. Within a very short period, the body has to prepare itself to either fight or flee. So what happens there is when there has to be a lot of glucose and then have to an oxygen. So this has to be delivered to muscles mainly. So there will be increased blood pressure and then increased pulse rate and increased blood sugar. So for after the challenging situation is over, then our body will revert back to the baseline. Then there will be no issue, and stress definitely helps us to face with the challenging situation. Even when we fall ill, stress response is quite vital. But what happens is it becomes pathological when stress is too intense, so that the person is unable to face the challenging situation. And if it becomes chronic, then our body is not going to get to the baseline. So it will be always in fight or flee mode. And most of the time nowadays, what we face as stressors is psychological. Body is not able to differentiate between psychological and physiological challenges, so the body mounts the full-blown stress response. This is the problem in today's life. So, so we know adequate sleep is an essential part in our lives. At least 6 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and sleep has a lot of restorative activity function. So if we don't have this adequate sleep, then we are going to have a lot of issues, and if sleep deprivation makes one liable to develop NCDs. It has been shown over and over again. Then regular physical activities, Asela talked about it a lot, and just to mention the other part of physical activities in mental health perspective, we know there is a hormone called endorphin. When one exercises, endorphins are released into the bloodstream, and when it acts on our brains, it relaxes us and also it improves our mood. So it's important to do involving regular physical activities. Then new ways of thinking. If I take you to this slide again, now these days, Asela also mentioned about free time we have these days, we are having these days. So we know these days we tend to think ayo gedara ayo mukud bahe, but if we think it in a positive way, right? Okay, we have enough time which we didn't have maybe a year ago. So this is the time we can invest in our lives in a different way to inculcate certain healthy behaviors, healthy practices to our lives. And this is not only for us, and if for children also this is very important. So it will be there in their life as part of their lives, not as something which other people have to impose on them. So it will be carried over generations, because then it becomes a habit rather than something we force on them. A time for ourselves, either to read or write or whatever our hobbies we can involve in those things. Then balanced diet, Yvonne talked about it. Healthy relationship between the couple and the children. And actually, if there is a good relationship between the people at home, it kind of acts as a stress absorber. So it's we have to work on our relationships if there is any problem in them. Getting proper treatment for mental illnesses and physical illnesses, both are important, because uncontrolled physical illnesses as well as mental illnesses contribute to increased stresses. Yeah. Then I'll move to the next component, alcohol in Sri Lanka. If you can remember this first slide, it says harmful use of alcohol. It doesn't talk about mainly alcohol dependent. So any form of alcohol, if it is harmful, then it contributes to the development of NCDs. This is from a WHO report in 2016. You can see 85% of our consumption is in the form of spirits. This is in complete contrast to many developed countries. And further from that report, 9% of the whole population is heavy episodic drinkers, and 32% of drinkers are heavy episodic drinkers. So 1/3 of our people who take alcohol, they take alcohol in excess. Nearly 5% of males are dependent on alcohol, and though RTAs we don't talk under non-communicable diseases, we know the contribution of alcohol to road traffic accidents and other accidents as well.
That's very interesting there. I mean, they have sort of identified that 5% of drinkers are dependent, and contribution to RTAs is very obvious. It's almost a daily occurrence. I mean, just moving on from that, are there any, in that respect, I think the audience also will be keen to find out, are there any safe limits, or is there a concept called low risk drinking that you can pass, an important message on about drinking habits in general?
Yeah, actually, abstinence is the safest, and there is this concept called low risk drinking. And what according to the WHO and also American Heart Association, what they say is the man can take 2 units of pure ethanol at one go, and then a woman can take 1 unit of pure ethanol at one go. So if we talk about what a unit is, it's 10 ml of pure ethanol, right? And you must have seen this, the last bullet, what I have mentioned. There is often some figure like this in any alcoholic beverage. But here I have mentioned 40%. It means 100 ml of this particular type of liquor has 40 ml of pure ethanol, which means 4 units of alcohol. So if someone consumes 100 ml of ethanol from this particular brand, then he is taking alcohol excessively. Then my last slide, mental illnesses and other non-communicable diseases. Obviously, mental illnesses are non-communicable diseases. Mental illnesses reduce coping capacity of the affected. Mental illnesses affect the immune system and endocrine system directly and indirectly. Mental illnesses affect the way one takes care of himself or herself. So these mental illnesses increase the risk of developing other non-communicable diseases. Then patients who have other type of nerve NCD and has a comorbid mental illnesses, they tend to be non-compliant with the medication. And such patients, they hardly participate in other restorative activities we want them to do, like rehabilitation or follow-up visits. So for those people, morbidity and mortality will be increased. So mental illnesses have several ways by which it affects the other NCDs. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Deva. That was very nice to summarize the impact that mental health has, mental illnesses have on non-communicable diseases. I think we've heard from the 3 panel of experts that we have today about the physical health aspect, nutrition aspect, and finally Deva spoke to us about the mental health aspect and its contributions towards NCDs. What we will do now is we have 2 very interesting case scenarios. If we can just move on to the first one. It's good on the screen. Give you a minute or so to just go through this case history. This is based on an actual case history. 7-year-old there, if we just read through the point. Someone who started off as a social drinker. Then what happened is that he was exposed to event gatherings where he was urged to take alcohol, and perhaps what happened with time was that eventually he realized that taking alcohol at the end of the day eventually helped him to feel relaxed. He's someone who moved on from just taking alcohol at social events. Then what happened next was that the amount of alcohol that he took, the frequency, and the amount that he took gradually increased, and came to a point where he was drinking about half a bottle of alcohol 4 times a week. And then, of course, presenting to the emergency services following an RTA. And he was also found to be obese. He elevated blood sugar, blood pressure, LDL, and elevated triglycerides. Dana, if you'd like to just start off from your point of view. This is a man who has now become dependent on alcohol, and we will move on to the other comorbidities. But if you'd like to speak first about the mental health aspect, about his addictive behavior and how it has contributed.
Yeah, actually, I have highlighted the very important. Everything is important. Very important. Some important points in the history. As Sayuri mentioned, now this person was a social drinker, and then his erroneous ways of thinking has led to his current tragic presentation. Now you can see the person was not able to refuse alcohol when he was offered. He didn't want to take, but because the superiors urged him to do so, he did take. So that is, the person lacks assertiveness to say no. And also he thought, okay, mawa ganan ganna nathu. And then he also thought, if I reduce taking alcohol, then there will be less number of clients coming to me. So all these are erroneous thoughts, and the fact of feeling relaxed is the actual thing which happens when someone takes alcohol because of the pharmacological action of alcohol on our brain. So all these 3 have contributed to his later developing alcohol dependence. So that is what I have to highlight, and then I think Yvonne and
Yvonne, if you could just, if this is a man who was found to be obese with elevated blood sugar, blood pressure, and from a nutrition point of view, how can we contribute towards managing him towards better health?
And since he was taking a long-term alcohol history, then I suspect that there must be social why this obesity has caused so much purpose people bites, people eating to inside fast foods. Most probably maybe due to bites that he's taking from the alcohol. So overall the cause of the diet factor and about the biochemical aspect, I would like to manage to be the suitable diet regime that
Yes, thank you, Yvonne. That's very helpful. Asela, can we contribute from a sports and physical health point of view towards improving his condition?
Yeah, now it's a very obvious thing in this case that end of the day, he has gained his weight, that he has become obese and also at elevated sugar level. So it's a combination and also the appreciation of elevated profile. So from the physical aspect, first in this case actually while they are handling the psychological impact and then the nutritional consequence, yes, at this point, physical activity comes to the track. Yes. So what we are going to implement of this kind of a variant is actually just to introduce a very low level, low impact activity levels, starting with the kind of aerobics like exercises, and as well as same time we can introduce the resistance, but with a very low intensity, and we keep on gradually increasing these things. So as they were mentioned about the endorphin action due to the exercises. So once it started endorphin acting on the system, actually he is having a lot of other things. So get rid of these and changes. You are thinking about original relaxation, feeling of relaxation as well as then to think about their body. So obviously it has an indirect effect on the getting of bad behaviors. The other way actually we know that we can reduce this particular level of obesity, or we can reduce 10% of this weight. So we are getting we know that by research it has been proven and we have done it. So fairly a very good control of blood sugar. So that is so sometimes we can go to a permanent remission. That's one area where we are thinking, and also by reducing the we know that by increasing your body weight or your obesity 10 to 15%, your aerobic capacity is reduced by 20 to 30%. So therefore, reducing body weight with all these nutritional intervention and also with the physical intervention, so we can actually increase exercise tolerance and also the aerobic capacity. So automatically, we get a very good summation of the results that can really improve his overall health. So that is a multidisciplinary approach. We can get a very good result.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Asela. I think, like you very correctly said,